welcome to episode 2 of Literarily Dead.
Yes.
This is Amanda again.
And this is Jean. And this week we have mistakes/mistaken identities for you guys.
And we're really excited. We both have really cool connections to show you guys. So we did the random decider machine that told us that bad things would happen if we didn't start with Jean. So we're starting with Jean today.
All right. I'm glad to know that my ability to go first hinges on our good luck, I guess.
It does.
All right. So I'm really excited because this is something that a lot of people know about, but also like people don't know necessarily the connection I'm going to talk about. So because we're based in Rochester.
New York, not Minnesota.
Yeah, New York. So we're Rochester, New York, home of Kodak, all that good shit.
Hey.
But not a lot, a lot of people kind of know this, but when you live in Rochester, one of the urban legends you hear about is how Jack the Ripper might be in our cemetery.
Yes.
He might be buried here.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite pieces of folklore from Rochester.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I remember being told this when I moved here, that Jack the Ripper might be in Mount Hope Cemetery, which we actually live like 3 blocks away from.
Right.
I actually don't think I've gone to the cemetery so many times, but I don't think I've actually visited the grave. Possibly. I think it's up in the, like, close to the gates.
I have no idea. I've never actually been to Mount Hope, and I've lived here all my life.
Oh my god, girl!
And
I
went
take
to the
you.
Sesame Anthony house, and freaking Sesame Anthony's buried there. So I'm really behind the times.
You're really behind on the times. We'll have to, once it gets not
Nice.
cold. Yeah, once it's not fucking
Snowing.
snowing outside, I'll have to take you, and we'll have to go. And
We'll find Jack the Ripper and Sesame Anthony. What an educational field trip that would be.
yes, it's gonna be great. Okay, but so background on anybody who doesn't know who Jack the Ripper is, because I know the case is really prolific, but it's like not a lot of people know exactly the specifics. So I'm gonna give like a brief 1-2 minute rundown, and then we're gonna get into the suspect that's buried in.
All
Mount Hope
right,
Cemetery.
let's do it.
So, the Jack the Ripper case is a case that involves a serial killer from August to November of 1888. And this is in the East End of London around the Whitechapel area. His other nicknames were the Whitechapel Murderer and the Leather Apron. The only reason that we have the Jack the Ripper name is because after several of the murders, there was a letter written by the murderer, that's air quotes, I'm giving air quotes right now, that was given to the media that people really suspect is a hoax now, but it was signed Jack the Ripper. So there's around 11 murders that are connected to Jack the Ripper, but 5 are only accepted as like canon murders now. The other 6 are kind of like
Copycats?
not copycats. It's like the original 5 cases are 1888, like the August to November, but then there's some that stretch to 1891.
Oh.
But they say these ones are like copycat / like they may not be there because some of the main suspects are either put away or not in the same area.
Ah.
Yeah. So the 5 canon deaths were Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Mary Jane Kelly being the most famous one because they still have the photo of her. The Jack the Ripper's like token killing method was a slash across the neck, and then he either would cut open their stomach, and then 2 or 3 of the victims had their uteruses cut out as well. But Mary Jane Kelly was the most famous one because, I say this, that's so grim. She's the most famous one, but she's known to be the most famous one because 1, she was the last one. And 2, when they found her, she was disemboweled and dismembered to the point of almost not knowing.
Oh my
like, they
God.
actually have a photo of this as well.
Oh,
this was
that's
when photo...
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's dark. It's grim. The other 6 people... were Emma Elizabeth Smith, Martha Tabram, Rose Millett, Alice Mackenzie, Frances Cole, and an unidentified woman. And these have been linked to the case in some degrees. actually something that I'd forgotten to mention is in the 5 canon deaths, Elizabeth Stride is kind of questionable because she didn't have the same bodily mutilations as the other ones did. I think she had her throat slashed, but her entire abdomen was left alone. Like Elizabeth Stride and I think it was Eddowes were both found like 30 minutes apart from each other. So either he didn't get the chance to finish one of them off and finished it with the other one, or she's just an entirely different case and then just got summed into Jack the Ripper.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's a beautiful thing. I guess not really. That's really bad wording. That's a weird thing, I should say. A weird / I don't, you know what? I'm just gonna leave that one hanging. Okay. All right. So the fact that the reason that Jack the Ripper is also so famous now is because no one knows who did it. No one knows who Jack the Ripper was. There's so much speculation, and this has been thrown around so often. And there were around the time that the murders happened, they checked out because he had because the murders were like they were able to cut out their uteruses and they had some sort of knowledge of like butchering / like physician sort of stuff. They looked into all those people, so they had like 2,000 suspects on their list to begin with, and then they needed to get alibis from all the butchers and the physicians that were around the area of the time. They investigated over 300 men, and then they detained around 80 of them. But some of the most famous ones, or not famous, but the ones that they thought they had really good evidence for, were Montague, John Druitt, some of these names are hard to pronounce, Seweryn Klosowski. I should know that because Polish, you know.
Right.
Klosowski. Aaron Kosminski, Michael Ostrog, John Pizer, James Thomas Sadler, and then our man of the hour right now, Francis Tumblety.
Oh, that's quite a name.
That is quite a name. So, we're going to get into Mr. Tumblety right now, because if he is Jack the Ripper, he is credited to being the first American serial killer.
Oh, instead of H.H. Holmes?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And H.H. Holmes is a big one, too, that I will probably get into another episode, because I have so much dirt on that motherfucker, it's not even funny at this point. I mean, obviously, he's already given himself enough dirt by all the crimes he committed. But, so Francis Tumblety is in our own Mount Hope Cemetery. He wasn't born in Rochester. He was originally from Ireland. His parents immigrated over here after a while, and they moved to Rochester. So, his early life wasn't really all that fancy, familiar, whatever. Wasn't all that exciting. But he began to be known as a medical quack, or basically like a guy who went around and sold like patent medicines, Indian cures, remedies, cure-alls, things like that.
Gotcha.
So he was a physician, but he was, air quotes, physician. So he went around selling stuff like he had a thing called Tumblety's Pimple Destroyer, a lot of other things. He just has, even if he wasn't involved in a Jack the Ripper case, he just has a huge track record because this guy was so eccentric. Like, he went around and he wore like fancy army clothes with like medals that he didn't earn. Never been in the army. And he went by different names. He was just eccentric to the ends of the earth, basically. And while he was a physician, he moved around quite a lot. He had the money to move around for some reason. So he was successful to some extent.
I was going to say, people are buying into this.
Yeah.
To some point.
People have to be buying into it. He'd moved to D.C., he moved to St. Louis, he moved here, there, and everywhere. And he actually got, he's been in trouble with the law so many times for so many different reasons. Because at one point, he actually killed a patient.
Oh my God.
He killed a patient named James Portmore, who died under pills that he prescribed. And the wife tried to contest it, but he got away with it for some reason because he was like, no, that wasn't, no. And then he ran away. And that's going to be a running theme with him. He's just going to be, if something goes, like...
Something goes south, he runs.
Yeah, something goes south. I was going to use belly up, but that was good too. Considering, but going back to the eccentric thing, he, after he killed that patient by accident, I don't know if it's an accident or not.
There's air quotes on accident.
Again, I'm just using so many air quotes here and it's not working with a podcast format. I apologize. But he traveled to Boston where he began what would be his long-running trademark. And that's actually a quote from one of the Jack the Ripper websites. But he started to wear a military outfit, and he would ride a white steed. And sometimes he would be seen leading 2 greyhounds around him.
Solid.
Around him. Yeah, he had a style, and he stuck with it, I guess. Which isn't a,
Give me a white steed, man.
He had money from somewhere.
I want to be styling like that. God.
But this is funny because the same year, wait, no, it's not the same year actually. In 1881, he was arrested for pickpocketing in New Orleans.
My God.
Right? Like, who?
Like, how do you, if he was Jack the Ripper, how do you go from pickpocketing someone to slashing their throats and disembowering them?
Okay.
Or is this before or after he went to
This was before. So,
Okay.
I'm getting into that now.
Oh,
so,
yay.
since he had this pocket money, he would travel to and from Europe quite often. So, he was in Ireland, he was in Britain, he was all over the place, and he would do some sort of practices there as well. But that's why he's considered a suspect, because he was there at the time of the murders. He was actually in jail for it for a little bit. He was brought in on another charge, which I'll talk about in a second. But the reasoning that they have for him being the murderer is because he hated women. He was misogynistic to the ends of the earth. And he blames this on 2 events in his life.
Okay.
He blames this on the first, it was September 23, 1857. He was actually arrested for attempting to abort a pregnancy of a local prostitute, sex worker. Philomene Dumas, and he had allegedly sold her a bottle of something to get rid of the baby. I don't know if that was something that she had asked for, or if that was something he did because he didn't want her to have the baby, or whatnot, but that's one thing. And they say, like, some sort of legal haggling, he got out. He didn't. This guy never stays in jail. He just never stays in jail for some reason. Like, they trust him enough to be like, okay, you can be free-ish, but you have a date at the set, and he just runs. He just runs. And this is back when they couldn't keep tabs on people as well as they could now. And then the second thing is that he claims to... I actually have a quote here from a letter from, not a letter, but Colonel Dunham during the American Civil War. Tumblety actually moved to the capital, words are hard still. He moves to the capital to put on airs that he's a Union Army surgeon. He is friends with President Lincoln, he says. General Grant, and a lot of other well-known figures. This guy just boasts out of his ass constantly. Don't know how he does it. Anyway, this is from Colonel Dunham, I guess, of the Union Army. Learned from Tumblety himself that he just absolutely fucking hated women. Like, he would rather give his friends poison than put them in the company of women. And this all stemmed from, he says, Tumblety himself says, that he married a woman after a quick affair with her, and he loved this woman, supposedly. But he found out afterwards that she had been a sex worker beforehand, and he couldn't look at her afterwards. And he lost all faith in womankind. I know. I know, it's fucking awful. Like, he just threw away all...
I'm rolling my eyes so hard that they hurt.
I know. It's okay. Like, but that was really... And that was some of the best evidence that they had against him was the fact that he was a doctor. And and he hated women.
And he had this grudge against sex workers. Weren't most of the victims sex workers?
Yes, almost all of them were sex workers, yeah.
Oh my god, that makes so much sense!
Yeah, it makes a whole shit ton of sense.
The epiphany is real.
He also had a lot of paranoia. This is a side note on this one, because as he wore army clothing and medals that he didn't earn, he was arrested several times for that, because it's illegal to wear things that you didn't earn, especially if they're army. And he blamed this constantly on other doctors of being jealous of him. Yeah. So yeah, he just had a bad rap. Like, I have other stuff here that I just have a list of stuff. Like I said, he switched names quite often. He went under several names, and it was just a bad year for him. The year he I think this is actually beforehand. It was just a bad year for him that year, because he also after being arrested for the army clothing, he got arrested because the name he was serving under currently was almost exactly like a name of another doctor that the police were looking for, who was aspiring to carry blankets with yellow fever to the north to infect people.
Oh my god.
So he didn't, I don't know if he got arrested, but he got off on that one too. He also got it tied up in the Lincoln assassination, but eventually cleared his name. Right? No!
Like, I have heard of people who have, like, the worst luck. Like, you go to DC, that's how you're the unluckiest guy in the world is someone related to Lincoln, because he saw almost all the presidential assassinations back at the time. Because he was there each and every time there was presidential assassination. But I'm pretty sure this guy takes the cake of unluckiest bastard in the world.
Yeah, no. And I mean, if he was actually Jack the Ripper, he fucking deserved it.
I mean, for real, he did, but still.
Yeah.
Do you have, like, a running tally or a total of how many times he was arrested?
Somebody has it. I didn't do it. I should have.
I feel like that should be done, because I'm really curious now.
Because he got in trouble with the law so fucking often. But so after getting caught up in the Lincoln assassination, he wrote and published The Kidnapping of Dr. Tumblety, a short pamphlet he authored in an attempt to clear his name and reestablish his good faith with the public. So basically, I'm a good guy, guys. Don't do this to me. Yeah. That was another straight quote from one of the websites as well, though. But so this is another aside, and this is what people think of. Also, kind of led him to the murders, if he did commit them. Is he had an affair with Sir Henry Hall Caine, who's 21 at the time, and
was not expecting that.
Yeah, no.
I mean, kind of. I was expecting that because he hates women, but
yeah,
totally
no.
out of left field. Okay.
So
Sir
Henry is bi, and they had an affair for 2 years. So this like, even though he had married a woman before, they believe he's like just gay at this point.
Gotcha.
And that his sexuality is just plunk there. But they also so here's the kicker that ties into is November 7th, 1888. He got arrested in London. This 1888 is when the murders happened.
Gotcha.
So the last murder, Kelly, happened between the 7th and the 12th. So he got arrested on the 7th. But I don't think, no one knows for sure if they put him away specifically at that point, or if they like booked him and then let him like go as long as he didn't leave the city. He was arrested on charges of gross indecency and indecent assault with force and arms against 4 men between July 27th and November 2nd. And these are like historical euphemisms for gay activities. He was having intercourse with these men. So he was being charged for being gay. But then while they had him there, they were like, hey, this guy's a physician, and he really fucking hates women. And he was around that area at that time. So he got charged on suspicion of the Whitechapel murders. So he got charged with being Jack the Ripper briefly on the 12th, but he was bailed out on the 16th. And then they were supposed to have a hearing on the 20th. They did, but the trial ended up being postponed until December 10th. So, motherfucker goes, bye. He's just gone. He flees to France, and he goes by the name Frank Townsend. And on the 24th, he then takes a steamboat from France to New York City. And the thing is, the people in New York knew he was going to be coming. They knew he was going to be coming over, but they couldn't figure out where he went. And the funnier thing is, Scotland Yard had him pegged as like top important suspect here.
Oh my God.
Like, and they don't talk about him a lot, people think, because he got away. Like, they eventually found him again in, he was living on, where does it say here? Oh, I actually didn't write down the address, but he was living in New York City, and they knew he was living with, like, a sister-in-law or something for a little bit of time, and then on the 5th of December of that year, he just disappears. So there's, like, not even a month worth of time where he gets charged with being Jack the Ripper, and then he just poofs. He runs like all hell, and he's gone. Like, he's had so much experience running up until this point that he's good at it. So
how does he end up in Rochester?
Well, like I said, his parents had moved to Rochester.
Oh, that's right.
So he began in Rochester, basically. He was born in Ireland, but he began in Rochester, moved around, moved to London briefly, moved back to New York City. He then disappeared from New York City. Moved to Rochester in 1893, where he stayed with his sister for a little while, and he would die in St. Louis a decade later, in 1903. So he died in 1903.
So his body was moved back to Rochester.
Yes. And he died a man of considerable wealth. Like, he was actually still wealthy. Like, people still bought into his shit, I guess.
God.
But no one was able to fucking catch him again. Like, they just lost him. And that's why people don't think that they talk about him that often. Or, like, they didn't talk about him a lot when it was going on.
Right.
Because he was just... he left. He was gone. And Scotland Yard lost their fucking prime suspect. Yeah.
Oh my God.
He has the most, like...
That's crazy.
Yeah, right? So he's here in Rochester. He's in our Mount Hope Cemetery. It's, like I said, it's an urban legend you hear when you move to Rochester, possibly. And I don't think people, like, actively seek out his grave, but it was something that I thought was close enough to dark tourism to really, like, hit the key there.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, like, you keep saying all these dates. And of course, me working at the Susan B. Anthony house, I know some dates about her life. So I'm like, she was in the same city as this guy.
Yeah.
Like, it was possible that they ran into each other.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I need to go through the archives now and just, like, search for his name and
yeah, but
see what I can find if they ever knew each other.
That's
but
even
that's
crazy. That's even if he's, like,
using his real name.
under Tumbletea or not. And it's also, he spelled it Tumblet, but I believe his parents spelled it Tumlety.
Oh.
Yeah. I missed a Y on the first spelling.
That will be something to keep looking for.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So
I didn't know any of this.
that was a trip through history for me.
Wow.
But that's my section. And I tied it in, I hope it was tied in well enough with Mistakes and Mistaken Identity.
I think it does.
Because they fucking lost him. Like, that's a mistake on its own. That's a huge fucking mistake.
Right.
And then Mistaken Identity, because who knows if he is even Jack the Ripper or not.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
I love that. That's so cool.
Thank you. I'm very happy you liked my my delve into Jack the Ripper.
Loved it.
All right.
Okay, so I'm really excited about my topic.
Okay, what do you got for me?
All right. So, this week, I am discussing, drumroll, just kidding, the Archimedes Palimpsest.
What?
Yeah, you heard me. I know, it's literally all Greek. If you're thinking, oh, that sounds Greek to me, because it is. So, I told you I took a lot of this information from a class.
Uh-huh.
So, I wrote about this topic in legal and ethical issues in collecting institutions
Okay.
when I took that class. So, let's go a little bit over what this even means.
Okay.
So, first things first, a palimpsest is an original manuscript or a piece of writing that is erased, and then the new writing is added, but there's still trace of the original content.
Okay.
So, this is a really common practice done particularly in the 6th century, because parchment, paper, papyrus, and other substrates, or writing materials, were really expensive, so it was more economic to reuse paper. So once you read a book, you just erase it. I mean, that's hundreds of hours worth of labor that you just erased.
Yeah, that's so sad.
But whatever, it's fine. But not really. Most palimpsests that still exist are written in parchment, and that's because it's the most durable compared to paper and papyrus. Okay. So that's the palimpsest of the Archimedes Palimpsest.
Okay.
Archimedes was a famous mathematician in ancient Greece. He was born in the city-state of Syracuse in 287 BCE. And so he wrote his mathematic theories down in 9 treatises or essays. So this is the guy that developed the equations involving pi and volume and cylinder. He's the one that shouted Eureka, and that's how we have the term Eureka. In Greek it means I found the answer. And he also has the equations for parabolas.
Parabolas.
Yeah, that word. So my favorite thing about Archimedes is his last words. Okay?
What were his last words?
His dying words were, "Do not disturb my circles." Which I think is just freaking brilliant. So the story, there's 2 stories, but one of them is that he had mathematical instruments in his hand, and some soldiers came about him, because this was during the time of war, and they thought that he was holding weapons, but they were instruments in order to measure circles. So they killed him. So his last words were, "Do not disturb my circles."
Oh my god.
Because brilliant. Anyway, so we now know Archimedes and what palimpsest is. So, before it was palimpsest, this book was referred to as the Archimedes Codex. Because the form of a book that we have for modern day books, those are called codices, or the singular being codex. So, this one book has the 7 of his 9 treatises, which are the equilibrium planes, spiral lines, the measurement of the circle, on-floating bodies, the method of mechanical theorems, and I'm going to butcher this name, but it looks like stomachon. I don't even know what that means. The last 3 are the most significant. On-floating bodies is the only copy in the same language as Archimedes wrote it, so ancient Greek. And the method of mechanical theorems in stomachon are the only versions that still exist today.
Oh my god.
The other 6 treatises that Archimedes wrote survive in other copies. However, the originals are theorized to have been burned in the Library of Alexandria, which I still cry about. It's been thousands of years and it's still too soon to joke about it.
Talk about dark history.
I know. Library of Alexandria.
Oh my god.
Heartbreaking. Okay, so around the 12th to 13th century CE is when the Archimedes Codex was taken apart, erased, and then the pages were cut in half to make a smaller book.
What the fuck?
This was done by a monk in Constantinople, now Istanbul, to make a prayer book, and so he wrote it over the writings of Archimedes. How poetic is that, to have religion written over science? I think there's something poetic about that, but I'm not here to discuss anything.
It's poetic, but it's also like, what the fuck?
Right, it's also it's seriously like, what the fuck? So, sometime before 1930, the book was moved to Marsaba, which is a Greek Orthodox monastery in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
The Library of Marsaba was incorporated with the Library of the Patriarchy. It's a Greek term. And then in the 30s, those books were moved to Athens.
Mm-hmm.
However, the records show that the Palimpsest was not among them in the 30s. So this book is missing. Okay. But it came to be realized that in 1920, a Frenchman named Marie-Louise Serret, I don't know how to read French, acquired the manuscripts without a proof of sale. Which is why I wrote about this for Legal and Ethical, because it's a provenance issue.
Mm-hmm.
His daughter Anne inherited the book after her father died in 1956, and she attempted to sell the book twice. The first time the sale went through, fell through, and the second time the Greek Orthodox Church requested that the book be held from auction because they claimed the right to it, because it was theirs.
Mm-hmm.
However, they did not give enough evidence to support that it was theirs.
Ooh.
So the auction house sold it for $2 million.
Oh my god. And this was when?
This was in, I believe, the 1980s.
Holy fuck. That was close.
The 1980s, 1990s this happened.
Mm-hmm.
So the Greek Orthodox Church ended up taking the auction house to court for selling their property. And I'll spare you the minute details of this case because it's really, really complicated. But I will tell you that the Greek Orthodox Church lost the court case and the manuscripts. So basically the reason for this was that the church never, in the 30s, realized it was gone, but never reported it was missing. And when it came up for sale the first time, they never laid claim to it.
Okay.
And there were other books that were missing from the collection that have gone up for auction, and they never laid claim to it either. And so they're like, well, if you can't be trusted to frickin' tell us that this is your property, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay, so when it was sold to auction, though, there are 4 forgeries.
4 forgeries?
Forgeries, okay. Like, people took gold leaf and illustrated the apostles on just some pages of the palimpsest. And it is said that it was Anne's father-in-law that decided to make these forgeries because he was an artist trying to sell his work. He made the forgeries so that the book would sell more.
Oh my god.
So it'd be more expensive. Okay, so we're about to get to my connection. I'm really excited to tell you.
You've been buzzing about this for an entire fucking week. Tell me.
Okay. So anyway, the buyer donated the palimpsest to the Walters Art Museum, where a multispectral imaging project was done by 2 universities. Are you ready?
Okay.
This is where the connection comes in. One of them was Dr. Roger Easton from RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. Oh my god, cut that please.
RIT,
Rochester Institute of Technology, where Jean and I graduated. And the other researchers on this project were from Johns Hopkins University,
holy shit,
where I will be attending grad school in January. They were able to recover at least 80% of the text of the Archimedes Codex. But they also found that the colored forgeries that are actually dated after 1938. So it fits within the timeline of Anne's father-in-law. And these forgeries left the text completely illegible. So those are the 4 pages that they cannot get any information from.
Oh my god.
So I hope that kind of tied into mistaken identities.
I mean,
because this is a thing that's identity was completely wiped out.
Yeah.
In order to be made into something else.
And I think you can definitely count it as mistakes too, because of the fact that the German Orthodox Church failed to take their shit.
They failed so hard.
Oh my god.
My whole paper was about the different legal ramifications and the different arguments that both sides had, and there was a dispute on whether or not they should use New York law or French law, and which one should they use.
Oh my god.
Because it resided in France so long, So it was a product of France, but should it be a New York City law because it's being sold in New York? So there's a huge dispute over that.
There's so much shit that comes with selling things like that have that sort of provenance, and that's going into a questionable provenance.
Exactly.
So
they never asked for that proof of purchase because there wasn't one because the fuckers stole it from the monastery.
Oh my god.
Right. Right.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. So we were so behind in mathematics because no one knew what these other treatises were because some fucking monk decided to erase them and write a prayer book over it. Because it's not important or anything. Whatever. Just some equations that we don't understand that I still don't understand today. But
I know.
it's fine.
Liberal arts students! Hey! Alright, so that's our episode for today.
Yay!
Oh my god, how long did we ended up going? Oh no, we ended up ending around the same time we should be.
Okay.
Alright.
So tune in next week for a special holiday
Yes.
episode since next Sunday is Christmas.
Yeah, but we won't necessarily be going strictly Christmas.
No.
We're just going to be doing holidays. Winter, maybe. Winter related.
Yeah.
Yeah, winter related sounds good to me.
Winter related.
Somebody frozen. I know who I'm going to do. All right. I'm ahead of the curve. All right. Bye.
Bye.